Good morning and welcome to Unlocking Freedom in Nature and Art. Well, it's probably not morning there, is it, Anne?
No, it's actually evening, exactly 8 p.m.
Okay, awesome. I want to welcome you today to our Tuesday Talks. And today we have a wonderful guest here. I just met her for the first time, and this is Anne Rajoo, correct?
You said it beautifully.
So, Anne, where are you coming from today?
So I live in Mauritius, tiny little island, sometimes not even on the map. And you just have to figure there's Africa, then there's Madagascar that we might know from the movie, and then there's a tiny island, often just a little dot or spot on the map, and that is Mauritius. And it's the place where my husband is from. I'm originally from Germany, but yeah, love brought me here, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place. Really grateful to be here.
Well, to be honest, I was pulling up photos because I was, where is this at?
Yeah,
And I was, oh my gosh, it is beautiful there. So,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
said you
it
have,
is.
it's a microclimates, which kind of reminds me in Hawaii on the Big Island that I can't remember how many different microclimates there are in that, just that one little area. And
Yeah,
so that's
yeah, I love
interesting.
that.
So
It's
it's
never
today,
boring, exactly.
so is it a normal like 70 degrees all the time, 80 degrees? What's the weather like?
Yeah, I would say right now we're in winter. So now I always have to try and figure that out in degrees because I think in Celsius, I think it's something like 70 to 80. And then in summer it gets more to 90, 100. And then we have the December, January, maybe to March season. Then we have cyclones and we get quite a lot of humidity and it's sweaty and a little bit so nice. And but we get the rain and all of that. But throughout the year, really, it is always warm. But you get when you go inwards, when you go into the mountains, it also gets cold. Everybody will wear their woolly hats and jackets. Flip-flop stays on, but everything else is all wrapped up and ooh, this is cold.
Well,
So
that's
yeah.
cool. So you do have a mountain there because some islands like
Yeah.
in the Bahamas are pretty flat. So
No, we
you,
have quite a lot of mountains.
oh,
Not
that's
huge ones, not very tall, but they you can definitely see them and you can do nice hikes. And yeah, if you go to the mountain, you feel the difference in climate.
no, is it more like a jungle with the trees? What kind of trees?
In places, yeah. I mean, this is one of the downsides because the island really was after slavery and then colonization and all of that, sugarcane was the main income producing area. So we've got a lot of sugarcane flat fields. And then the mountains still have trees and guava trees and palm trees and there's mahogany trees and all of that. But it's really, really diminished and small. And then you were saying even when I told you we've got 1.2 million people on the island, but it's only an hour and a half down and 45 minutes east-west. It's densely populated. So greenery is going away. And so it's not as lush as it would normal, like what you would imagine, I think. I feel it. I see it as in, yeah, fields of sugarcane, but not so much jungle.
Okay, so I know that it's always sad because it's like, okay, let's preserve at least a section of
Yeah.
forest, and it breaks my heart when I see trees cleared, or I have people, oh, it prevents forest fires, and I'm like, but if you cut every tree, you have no forest.
Yeah, you don't have fire, but you don't
So
have
it's kind
forest.
of my husband had to say this quote was, well, it'd be like emptying the lakes around here to prevent
Yeah.
drownings. It just
Yeah,
common sense.
yeah, very true. Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
well, I
Yeah.
hope they preserve a few trees there for you guys so you can
Yeah, no, we have a
remain some of
beautiful
that
national
beautiful
forest
greenery.
and they're doing efforts to preserve. But obviously damage has been done a long time ago and fields are fields and monoculture and farming and trying to grow your crops in a dry climate. Definitely you can see it, but trying our best. There's definitely lots of awareness. This is also as a German who is very, like recycling and really trying to save the world with solar energy and all. There is still a lot of work that can be done, but it's changing. Like I always tell people, if you imagine Mauritius, you really just have to think we are probably 10, 15 years behind the other bigger cultures, like let's say the US and or Europe. So we are definitely seeing awareness campaigns, which were not here. I've been here for 10 years. And so I would say in the last 2, 3 years, people are really trying to change and be like, okay, we have to make sure we take care of this beautiful place.
You know,
Yeah, damage has been done.
what's so funny though, growing up, we recycled everything. We reused everything. You didn't have to tell us. I grew up on a farm and you always reused everything and thought of different ways to use products. So it was just natural. And
Yeah,
we probably did, there was probably more recycling done. There was less plastics done at that
yeah,
time. You had more people cooked from scratch, used their
exactly.
gardens and stuff. So it's almost like in some cases we just need to go back.
Oh,
We used to
absolutely.
remember that trees were so valuable because they take so long to grow. Any kind of plants and stuff
Yeah.
do take longer than a lot of times that we think. And when you take those trees away, it takes away your rainforest, the things that help with the atmosphere, and it changes the entire climate in the area
Yeah.
to where it can become like a desert. So very important. So,
Yeah.
anyway, that subject, what you and I will just have to have another time for that. But because today we want to learn where Anne is coming from. We want to go take her back to her youth. I want to know what it was like growing up as Anne, what you were like as a little girl, where you lived, your story.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So, well, I was born in East Germany in 83. And that really means that was, I think, my history knowledge is not great, but that was really around the reunification, I think is the word, of East and West Germany. I do remember things like my mom queuing up in the supermarket to get bananas for us. And you were only allowed one single banana per person. So there's these stories. There's also stories like when I went to school, we had an aunt who lived in West Germany. She would send over a parcel with stationery. And I took that to school, all excited as a little girl. Look at my stationery. And the teacher took it away from me because it was from West Germany. So there's lots of these things that I still remember that we felt from this like separation, East versus West.
And I'm going
My
to
mom and dad were,
interrupt you here real
yeah,
quick because what you're saying is so true. We had actually a friend that escaped, I think,
yeah,
one side of Germany and swam the river and made it,
yeah. I could, yeah.
which
I
a
mean, we
lot of
have
times they
family
didn't
who
make it.
exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, I didn't even, a lot of
Mhm.
times in this part of the world, you don't realize what's actually going on in the world.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, yeah, for me, obviously it was normal, but then as you grow older, you're like, oh, this was weird. I said that the whole school stories, or my parents would tell me stories about radio channels that they would secretly tune in and stuff. And yeah, so very interesting and weird, but
So
it
no,
was
so was
reality.
most of your family on on, well, you
Most
said
of them on the
your
east,
one
yeah,
aunt was on the west and you were on the east. So.
yeah. Most of us were on on the east side, and then we had a couple of family members who actually, yeah, left to go to the west. And they would then send little parcels and try to sneak things in that we were not getting and that were not allowed and all of that. And yeah, even stories like my mom wanted to go to university and she wasn't allowed, for example, because apparently, well, I mean, she didn't have a father and that was not seen well in that era. So she was raised by a single mom, but because of that, she wasn't allowed to go to university. So all these different stories
Well,
and things. So yeah.
it's interesting because when I won't say his name because I don't want to get anybody in trouble over there, but when he did swim the river and escaped like that from the one
Yeah.
side, his dad was like a principal of a school, and
Oh,
his
he would have
family
gotten in
he
big
lost.
trouble.
So his family was in
He
trouble,
lost
lost
probably his
all
job.
their
Yeah.
work, was fired,
Yes.
and it was
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So that really was reality and normality. And so my dad was working in the army. Eventually, a few years after the reunification, the army, the Eastern German army, was closed down. So he then had to find a completely different job and make a completely new career. And my mom was working in what is that? A clothing factory. So both were working, which was quite typical for Eastern Germany. Whereas in Western Germany, moms often stayed at home with the children and made all of that happening. In Eastern Germany, the woman went to work. She was the strong one, hardworking, managing all of that. And you see where I'm going because that's what I learned. So I
oh
learned from my
yeah.
mom that you've got to work, you can raise your family. My mom was beautifully always a beautiful mom, always trying to be present and do things with us. My dad wasn't there so much because of army and working in the caserne or whatever you call that thing. And then when he changed career, he was actually an entrepreneur or started his business, and that was in retail. So he was working retail hours, 6 days a week, and all of that. So he was not often there. So it was mom and me raising my little brother, and obviously learning early on to take responsibility and all of that. And while I was really a bit of a tomboy, so I was not the girly girl, I was really more the troublemaker. My brother is a very quiet person, also interestingly, very different characters and everything. But I was the one who would be the first on the tree, who would fire in the woods, who would fall in the lake in winter. We had actually quite a few lakes in the area, and we were always ice skating in winter. I love that. That was just amazing going through the different lakes and everything. And I was very, very active, and I was doing athletics. So as a child, my dream was to become an Olympian athlete. So that was my thing. 7 days a week, I was training, running, doing all the sports. And then chasing the trees and the boys in terms of fighting with them and that sort of stuff. So it was me as little Anne and
Oh,
getting in
so
trouble with my parents a lot.
that's funny. So, what was there any specific thing you wanted to do in the Olympics?
Yeah, I'm definitely a runner, and I used to love high jump. So the long distance, the not the sprint so much, but the longer distance running and the high jump was my discipline, was really loved it.
Oh, cool. And you love tree. I used to do. I was the tomboy too, so I totally relate.
Yeah, absolutely. So much fun. Yeah.
So in high school, how what was it like?
Hmm. High school is which ages? Because I'm always struggling with
That's
the
like
names of the schooling system.
14
That's
to
like
18.
yeah, okay. That's when we actually moved, and that was very hard because my dad had gotten his retail business, and then he had an opportunity to take over two petrol stations, and we moved to a different area. And I was about 14, I think. I was ready to go to high school. In Germany, you go to high school at 14. And so it was a good time to switch or to relocate because school was not a problem. But it was completely new area. I was a teenager, so not totally happy anyway. And I had to give up my athletics because there was no club. So I really struggled with that. I had to stop completely. No athletics at all. I dream of the Olympian, the competitions that I had been doing almost every weekend, all gone. And so I really struggled with that. And we moved into this really old terrible house in this tiny, terrible village. So everything felt really, really hard. There was a lot of coal mining in the area. So I remember we have pictures of my brother and I in the lounge that we were renovating, and the white bed sheet was actually black with our feet because the soil in that village was black. And so it was
Oh wow,
ugly.
I
It was
wouldn't
really
even
ugly. I
thought.
couldn't understand why they needed to move there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you wouldn't even think of that about the ground being so black like that.
Yeah, for years, for years. I mean, there was no coal production anymore, but just behind the house, you could see the big chimneys of the coal factory that would make these coal briquettes that you would put into the ovens and all. And that was not functioning anymore, but the soil was like thick. If you dig into it, it was like thick black charcoal. Everything
Oh,
was black.
interesting. So did you go to school and live there your whole high school years?
Yeah, until yeah, finished high school and eventually obviously got used to and grew up and did other things and worked in the local discotheque in the local bar as a teenager and worked at my dad's petrol station to earn some extra money already sort of like being the working, always trying to work. My parents didn't have much, it's really we were getting by, but it wasn't things were really easy and possible. But obviously, I was raised with the responsibility of sort of figuring it out. So I would go and work and find jobs and make that work. And then I went to university in a bigger town, which is called Dresden. And I tried a year of law, which felt like law would be a good smart thing to study and you would have a good career, but it was too boring. I couldn't handle it. So after a year, I left and I went to a private, yeah, college where I did tourism and event management. And then that's where travel and it's like I need to get out of Germany. I really wanted to, straight after university, I wanted to leave. And I did internships and years abroad in Thailand and Spain, and then ended up in London. And I lived in London for 10 years after university, and I worked in the travel industry there. And at some point was traveling back between London and Germany every other week, going on business trips. And that was a great career in the sense of I was traveling, but I was not in Germany, but I was able to see my family regularly and all of that.
That
Yeah, that
sounds
was
like
about 10
a
years.
fun job, to be honest.
It was,
So,
yeah.
and I want to
Yeah.
say quick hi to Nad Nadia, Katie, Dale, and anybody else that is watching. Thanks for watching.
Hey,
If you do have a question for Anne, just throw it out there. So, thank you for sharing this, though, Anne. So you're traveling. When you were in high school, did you do anything fun? It sounds like you worked mainly, and you were in a
yeah,
village.
I worked a
Are your
lot.
parents still in that village?
My dad is still there. Unfortunately, my mom passed away a few years ago, so that was
I'm sorry.
yeah, that was difficult. It was very sudden and unexpected, and she was only 56, so she was still quite young. But dad is still there, and my brother is in Berlin. So Berlin is about an hour and a half drive away. So not too far, but also not awfully close. So it's just my dad in the little house doing his thing. But yeah, he's still there. Or you were
But
asking if I did something fun. Yeah, I think the fun part, I mean, what I really loved back then, I was working in this, well, you would call it a nightclub. We didn't call it a nightclub. It was a discotheque. It was where all the young people of the area would go. And I was working in a bar and I had this, yeah, fantastic group of friends of evenings. We were working and sort of partying, but it was just really, it was very different from actually attending the party when you work there. But it was a really lovely group of friends. Yeah, every weekend we would work late nights and we had to clean up and we would sing and dance and just as a group. So yeah, lots of fun memories in that regard. But otherwise, yeah, I think it was more, yeah, trying to study and doing a little bit of art. So this is maybe where the side comes in. Eventually, from giving up the Olympian dream, the next dream became to become a fashion designer. So my mom was sewing because she had worked in the textile industry, in the
right.
clothing fabric. So she had always sewn me clothes and she taught me how to do it. And so I was sewing my own clothes and for friends and all of that. And then eventually wanted to become a fashion designer, was drawing and all of that. But that didn't work out either. So
So was that
and
after the tourism or before the tourism or
that
during?
was before the tourism, actually. Yeah, yeah, that was before the
Hey,
tourism.
I totally get it because I'm so much like you. It's amazing how when I have my guests on, you find how
Yes, so
much you
good.
have in common. Actually, because my
Yeah.
degree is actually in fashion design
Oh,
and
amazing.
merchandising, and I used to design like wedding gowns and evening gowns and that. But I too got bored of it because I couldn't sit behind a machine all the time. I love the
Yeah.
designing, the
Yeah.
drawing, the art
Yeah,
part, but having to sit there and sew it, not so
that was
much.
not your thing.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah.
So, and so you
Cool.
did the tourism and stuff. So that's amazing. Is that how you met your husband?
Exactly. So we were both working in a tourism business or company, and yeah, and he had, you know, put his eyes on me. Like he had seen me a long time before I had actually seen him. And then he made the move at a leaving party of a colleague, and yeah, struck up a conversation, got me pretty drunk, and walked me home in London and actually dropped me in on London Bridge. So if the big blue bridge that opens up, we were had to cross it to get to my apartment. And at some point, he just decided to lift me up. It was heavy, or he was not strong, whichever way you want to see it. And he actually dropped me back down on the floor. And that's always a bit of a fun story. But this is basically the moment we met and the sparks came out.
That's fun. That's a fun story, though. But it is like as you go back, and then we're keep going here. So then you
Yeah.
guys end. How do you end up where you're at? So go ahead and finish your story here. Very interesting.
Yeah, so then obviously fast forward, boyfriend became husband. Then we had our first child in London, and we were like, London is fantastic when you're still or when you're a young couple, but it didn't feel the right place to grow the family. And so we had looked to move outside, but then we realized, okay, then we have a nicer place, a bigger place, but we'll have to commute 2 hours into London, 2 hours back, so you don't see your child. And what do we do? And basically, in the UK, you get 1 year maternity leave. So I just had that full year. And at the end of it, we went to Mauritius on a second holiday, and we just did our thing. We rented a little bungalow and stayed there, and we're driving around. And it's actually in the same village where we're living now. And we went to the local mall and driving into the parking, and my husband goes, "Does that not feel like home?" Because it was like so normal to do that. And really, that question I just felt in my heart of like, actually, this feels like home. And I didn't say anything that moment. We went back to London, and that was in January. So Mauritius, summer, beautiful sunshine, UK, January, grey, disgusting, cold. And I was supposed to go back to my job, which was traveling at that time. So I was supposed to go back traveling to Germany every other week, in and out. And I was like, don't know if I can do that with my little one now. It just didn't feel good anymore. And eventually I said to him, listen, let's move to Mauritius. And I just had spoken it out, and he did everything in a few weeks, just everything. Shipped it over to Mauritius, moved here, and yeah, never looked. It's now 10 years, and it was definitely one of the best decisions we made. It was not planned. We didn't really think about it. It was just, let's just try, because what do we have to lose? The family is just growing. Nobody's in school. Career needed to
Well,
change anyway because it probably wasn't sustainable. And that's how we ended up here.
it's interesting. So now when we look back, we realize what you went through going to that little village that you didn't like or felt at home at. That's why you're
Yeah.
so cautious of making sure your kids, you raise them in a home that they would feel it's
Oh,
like
yeah. I never thought about that. That's interesting. Yeah.
when you start looking back, and that's why I
Yeah.
always like to take people back. It's like that's why you love nature.
Yeah.
You look at all the time you spent out in the trees or out
Yeah.
doing things. You grew up with that, and it was just part
Yeah.
of you.
Yeah. It's true. It's really when we were here on holidays, it really just felt like an amazing place to raise children. The beach, the everything. Even till now, it is really that little safe bubble with all the, excuse my word, like going on in the world. We are protected. We don't feel a lot of the things that are going on in the US, in Europe, etc. It really feels protected, and children are still very free. I can let my children run, and I don't have to worry about their safety. Of course, you have to, cautious and all of that, but overall, they have a beautiful, free childhood. They spend almost every day outside. We have 10 minutes down to the beach. And yeah, and it's just that really means a lot to me that we have the opportunity to live in that way.
And that's really nice. And that's where I can see definitely, well, it's kind of like when I grew up, we were able to do that. And that was many years ago. We won't go there. But it was different. It's like you were free to do stuff. You didn't have all the crimes and everything else that goes on. And we actually live in a nice place, but the more people that come here, the more stuff that starts happening, I don't know why, but it's like that rhetoric or whatever comes here. But when we moved here to North Idaho, it's like I just felt it was home. It was the place it was what we were supposed to do. Like
Yeah.
you said, you just get that gut feeling, that heart moment. I just started crying because it was like you're driving over the Long Bridge, and I was like, turned to my husband. I said, "This is where we're supposed to move to." And we were
Oh,
on
exactly.
vacation as well,
Yeah.
holiday.
Well,
And I'm like, we're supposed to move here. And so we
I love
started
that.
looking for places, but it's amazing how it just hits you. And as a mom, it's interesting. You said you go back and you look at that fact that you want to make sure you're doing everything for your kids. And I think people
Yeah.
forget, a lot of people forget how much efforts moms put into raising their kids, all the things that you think
Yeah.
about, you work or not work, but what people don't realize, it's a lot of work just being a mom,
Yeah.
keeping the house clean, food and knowing where they
Absolutely.
are, taking them places. It's a full-time job. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
just 8 hours a day, it's 24 hours a day.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
It's
so,
actually a big
and
part. Yeah,
go
no, it's
ahead.
actually the motherhood piece is a big part to just come back to where I am right now and what I do right now. It was really this motherhood piece that was full on, really present, really trying my very best to raise the most amazing person. Back then I had one child, now I have two, but being fully involved in the childhood and everything, but also again going back to this, I had learned moms can work and moms can have careers and do it somehow all. And my mom made it look quite easy in that sense. And so I tried, but I struggled. I found it really hard to juggle my job and the family, and really quite came to this point where even though we lived in Mauritius, which is beautiful, and my life looked beautiful, I didn't feel it. I felt home, but I didn't feel home with me as Anne, as the person, and the way I was showing up. On the outside looked like the most amazing mom, but inside often I'm not happy in this role. There was a lot of inner struggle, and eventually I turned that into what I now call peaceful productivity, because the German roots were hardworking, efficient. From my dad, I had learned the whole like army style, and also 7 days a week, build your business, work hard, you make it happen. That was the internalization I had. And then I live in an island where actually I just want to be on the beach and do nothing, but nothing really, really difficult. And eventually tried to really just dig into what's going on here and shared with women. And interestingly, lots of women were like, oh my God, I hear you. This is me too. And I need more peace. I need more calm in my life. And yes, I want to build a career, but I want to also be present for my children. And I want something for myself too, because I'm still a person in all of this acquaintance equation. And yeah, and that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing now. And
Right. Well, and what's interesting listening to you, one of the things, your mom just made it look easy, but she was probably
yeah.
struggling with the same exact
Oh, yes.
things. And
Yes.
just because somebody makes it look easy doesn't mean it is easy.
No, exactly. But you get the idea. You think
Oh,
you should
yes.
be able because your mom was able. The other women that you see are able, because no one really walks around with the sign of like, I'm struggling here, I'm finding it really hard. Everybody is just trying to power through and to manage. And so what you see is the positive side. And I think only in the last few years where women have spoken up more about the challenges and the struggles of mom career life in general, which before it was more like, don't speak about it. Don't say that you're actually not really enjoying your motherhood experience. How dare you say anything like that?
Oh, you are so right. It's like you hear that. It's like, how dare you? So moms, they're afraid to say, "Hey, I'm struggling. I need help." So, and sometimes they just need an encouraging word or somebody to just be kind to them. And especially if you don't have family around to help out with babysitting or just to
Yes.
give you a break, those moms really need that break time a lot of times, and people don't
Yeah.
realize it, even because they make it look so easily. But every mom struggles, every
Yeah.
person struggles, right? But and
Exactly.
you saw it firsthand. I want to say hi quickly to Trish and Roxanne. So thank you guys for joining us.
Right.
We appreciate you being here. So if anybody has questions, be sure to ask those here. So Anne she just told us her story about growing up in Germany in a small town and how she was in fashion designing, the travel agency, worked for her dad in the gas station, and all how it got to where she is today on a little tiny island. And so let's hear more of your story of what you do today and how you help women. And I mean, it's amazing that you do that. But you would live through it, so you experience, and nothing is more important than the experience. Yes, we don't want to have to go through a lot of the stuff, but it also makes us so much stronger. But if we can learn from somebody like you, a mentor or a coach, that is so much more helpful. That means we don't have to struggle on our own. So that's where
Exactly.
mentors and coaches and personal development trainers come in. So go ahead, Anna, and tell us more about what you do.
Yeah, so peaceful productivity really is this concept of yes, we want to do things, we want to be productive, but we want to be productive in a more peaceful and sustainable way. And that really comes in not necessarily about time management and yeah, the traditional things we get told in productivity would normally be just compartmentalize, make because of time and book your calendar and all of that and there always is a part of it is true. I find a lot of times it doesn't actually work really well for women and for mothers because of all the things that we've have going on. And then women in general with their cyclic energy, whereas most productivity is just always based on you have all the energies. Get up in the morning and do the thing, eat the frog, and those things that we're told, but not every woman every day of the month can actually do that. And so peaceful productivity really takes more a holistic view and a more sustainable view. And that still means that we are ambitious. The women I work with are very ambitious. Most of them are entrepreneurs. Most of them only work part-time because the other part of the time they are there for their family. It really is a priority for them to be with their family, but also to build something that they love, that has impact, that helps other women most of the times. It's really this women to women and just trying to raise the tide, raise all the ships in that sense. And I do that through what I call an audit, which is a one-on-one setting. I have a small membership and I have a podcast, which is called the Productivity Sweet Spot. And that's really the ways and pleasure I have to share whatever I have learned. I play around with all sorts of apps, tools, ideas that I come across, and I apply them to myself and sort of see how does that. And then obviously I help women to identify what they could do that fits for them because everybody has a very different life, different phases in their life. Like we said, my children are a little bit bigger now. I feel like I'm entering a different phase that is not necessarily, yeah, I just feel like I have a little bit more time because they don't require as much of me. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's, I think, in a nutshell, what I do.
Well, and what I love too is the fact that you shared how you did several things. And that should let people know you don't have to be stuck in one thing just because you go to college for one thing. It doesn't mean you have to go to college even. There's so many different things. Do what you love. Life is too short to do what you hate. And if you don't love it and aren't having fun, and at least enjoying it, then try to get out of that and do something different, something that you enjoy, whether it's part time or full time, especially like you said, for moms. It's like you're already struggling and it's already hard. You don't want to add something extra hard there that you really
No,
don't
exactly.
like, because then you start to regret. And I always say, live with no regrets.
Oh,
And I'd say,
yes,
somebody
exactly.
else had told me that, and I can't remember if it was my grandmother or who, but it's so true. It's like you only have so much time in a day, and we only have so much time on this earth, so you might as well enjoy, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that then really came through for me when my mom passed away, because that was this wake up call. Unfortunately, very often we sort of have happening in our life. We're like, hold on, stop now, refocus. What are you actually doing here? What do you want? Kind of life do you want to live? And time is not guaranteed. I remember my parents back then, because they were 56, 58, my dad, talking about retirement and all the things they will do in retirement. And then my mom never got there. And I basically decided life is now. It has to feel good. It has to be joyful. And yes, there's obviously struggles. And I'm not saying that everything is rosy and fantastic for me now. It's business now for me is actually probably 3.0 or maybe 4.0. Who knows? I don't know. I started off very differently. At some point, I was running a virtual assistance agency. So everything is changing, but it has to feel good and has to be fun because we only get that one shot and we don't know when and how
It's
long it's
right. And I'm
lasting.
going to rephrase that just slightly. So it's like gardening, right? I enjoy
Yeah.
gardening, but it is work. It is
Yeah.
work,
Oh my God.
shoveling, turning the soil, planting the seeds, keeping it watered and fertilized, and watching the weather and that stuff. It is work. but it is enjoyable. It's one of those nature things that you get, so the reward is great.
I love that.
And just because you enjoy it doesn't mean it's not work. It's kind of like when I sculpt these walls.
Oh, you
Behind
make
me,
those.
they're
Wow.
3D sculptures. Well, all that carving and painting and all the time it takes and the prep work, it is work. And my hands hurt afterwards. But when I see the results, and I enjoy doing creating things and I enjoy art. So just because it's enjoyable doesn't mean it's not work. Sometimes I think people get to, well, I had to work. And so it wasn't enjoyable, but it's like every job you do have to work. that's
Yeah,
that's why it's called
exactly.
a job, right?
Yeah,
And but what we're trying to say is it should have your values in it. It should be enjoyable. It does something for your soul.
so
Is there a
true.
better way that you would say to put it?
No, I think that's it. Exactly. It has to have something for your soul. It needs to feel aligned with who you are as a person. And then obviously whatever goals and whatever success looks for like for you, there is no real definition anybody can tell you. You've got to figure it out for yourself. And it changes as well along life, when like, as a young person, middle age, old age, it's never stays the same. But I think it would be sad to sort of just sit there and be like, okay, that's just it. And I can't change. I can't try something new. Well, I think you always can. And
Yes.
sometimes it doesn't work. And the other next time it's like, wow, it's amazing. Let's do
Right.
more of that.
And like you said, it might not work when you're young, but you still have that, okay, but I learned from it, and maybe if we did it this way,
Exactly.
then it'll
Always a
work.
learning.
And
Yeah.
I'm like you. It's like I've changed all the time. I've done so many different jobs, but it's getting those experiences that was so important to me, because you discover more about yourself when you do that. You discover more about others. And so then it's actually helps us to grow, transform.
So
I
true.
will never probably retire in my life, because I am one of those that, what's interesting, growing up on a farm, my grandparents never once talked about retiring. To me, that's
Interesting.
just like this weird word out there. And it's like my family, because it was always about raising, and taking care of this or that. They never, ever talked about retirement.
I like
They
that.
talked about going on
Yeah.
more vacations or doing this, or they would hire extra people to work so they didn't have to do as much. But they never talked about retiring. And the statistics show that if you do retire, a lot of people don't live that much longer when they do retire, because they have a tendency just to want to sit. They
Yeah,
think that is, but then they
absolutely.
get bored, and then they end
Yeah.
up going back to work or doing something different, because sometimes in our mind, things aren't what we perceive they are. And I'll give an
So true.
example. So I always had wanted to be a fashion buyer, right? A buyer.
Yeah.
And I got the job offer. But then it was, I had two little girls at that time. And I was going to have to be out of the country 2 weeks a month. I had to live in a large city. It was all these things that wasn't me. And so when I started thinking about, I was like, no, that's not me. When you start looking at the details, because sometimes we perceive something will be totally opposite of what it really is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can't say more. I can't agree more. Like, even the fashion industry, I had this dream, but then when I went to a couple of universities to put forward my portfolio, it's like, actually, I'm not sure if I fit into this. I don't think it's actually me. I like my little crafty and make it for myself and doodle and whatever. I don't think I can actually really have that pressure and that what goes on in that industry. So the perception of, oh wow, this would be fantastic. And it's like that in many areas of life for sure.
Right. It's like, oh, these are bragging rights, but it doesn't mean you're enjoying it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
So, and that's why I live in the country, because I love living where I do. And
Yeah.
I figure I can fly or drive. It's like you love where you live.
Even though
So,
it's far away from many places, and I don't travel so much anymore because traveling from this island to other places is either long, everything is 24 hours, or expensive, but the place itself is beautiful. So
so you probably, when you do travel, go back home to Germany.
To be honest, that's always a challenge because you feel like if you travel, you want to see something else as well, you
Right,
know?
exactly.
And actually,
Yes.
my dad comes here a lot because
Oh,
he is
good.
alone. Then he comes at the end of the year. He stays for almost 3 months usually. And so he's like, you don't need to come and see me. You can
Yeah.
go wherever you want to go. I'll come to
You
you.
know
And that
what?
is sort
That's
of his
awesome
thing.
because
Yeah.
it's more like you want to see family. One of the things that we do is we travel as family together or meet up at
Oh, I
some of
like
those
that.
places
Exactly.
to see
Yeah.
other parts of the world. So that's always fun
Yeah.
too
Love
because
that.
I totally get it. It's like you want to see family, but you only have so much time, so you're okay, which but it's like at the same time you have to sit there and think, okay, what's the most important? Luckily we have Zoom and the phones so we can connect. It's like look how far we are and we're able to connect. I
Mhm.
and so that to me is like the blessing of technology to be able to do this Facebook live, this podcast and be able to communicate with each other. And I have a lot of friends that will just get on like, "Hey, let's do a Zoom calls so we can see each other's faces
Yeah.
and meet that way, you know?"
Absolutely. Yeah, it's beautiful. And then obviously I love when my dad gets on WhatsApp phone calls with his grandchildren and they put all these silly filters on to change their face. And my dad is just like, "Stop, what are you guys doing?" Right? It's just the cutest thing. Yeah.
That is so much fun. Yeah. And nothing's, and to me, that is because it's family is about communication, right? Or friends
Yeah.
is the communication.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the whole topic here um, is about that, right?
Absolutely.
About the productivity is like in which I'm sure it's about getting that communication out to family or friends because when you were talking about the fact that some people feel like they can't just relax or they feel
Mm.
overwhelmed, somebody was asking me that question or talking about the other day about how my daughter or somebody, I can't remember who it was, always feels overwhelmed because she's trying to do her own thing, her own job, be an entrepreneur. But everybody's, oh, you have plenty of time. So you need to join me here or join me there. And I was telling my experience was I ended up having to put everything on a calendar and in my phone, scheduling out my coffee time, my exercise time, lunch,
Yeah.
every
I do
little
that too.
thing. So I would keep some things open so that way I
Yeah.
didn't feel guilty when I said no, I'm sorry, but I'm busy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you found yourself saying, "Oh yeah, I could do that," and because people will say, "Well, you should be
Exactly.
able to
Squeeze it in.
reschedule." Well, some things I can reschedule, and other things I can't. So, how do you tell people to deal with that kind of issue?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it always comes back to really figuring out what's the priorities, and that can be different again in different phases. I remember a couple of years ago, my priority was to be more creative again because creativity had just sort of like, yeah, gotten left behind because business and kids and all of that. And then I would schedule in creative time, and that was non-negotiable. That was just as important as a client meeting, as a sales call that would bring me millions or whatever. It was just that is the focus. And that was the focus for the year, and everything would sort of be built around that. Then, since last year, yeah, the year before, my focus is back on running. So I started running again, and so my exercise is non-negotiable, and I will hardly ever change it. And that's really what I help women to then also see what is important and how can we create a schedule that protects those things that are important, and that can look different, but it's sitting down and saying, okay, these are the couple of things, however many, and then we protect it, and we really protect it with serious vigor of like this matters. And yeah, I think that it's exactly as you described. Put it in the schedule, fill it out, have some blank spaces, and then say no, and don't even apologize. Just be like, thanks for your understanding. I have something on my schedule. And a lot of times it's about saying no rather than saying yes. Many opportunities I won't get into because they don't fit with what is important to me in this season. So, yeah.
I love that. That is such great advice, and it's a great golden nuggets, I call it. You shared quite a few here, and I appreciate it. So, quick, I'm going to ask you one more question here. So, was there any turning point or defining moment or any kind of story that really helped you to get where you're at today?
I think the turning point was the two elements of the motherhood not feeling good in this. But this is what I wanted. This is what I dreamed of. I wanted to have family. I wanted to be this really involved mom, and then not feeling good in that role. And then when my mom passed away, and it really came to this moment of, gosh, if you want to live the life that you have dreamt about, you've got to change something because you've been going on for this for too long. It's been years and years, and every time you just, yeah, you don't look up. I had this feeling of blinders on and just trying to survive one day to the next. And then you look up and you turn 40 or 35 or whatever, and you feel like, whoa, what happened? How did I end up here? And that was me. And that was really the moment where, no, I'm going to be more intentional. I'm going to be very intentional with the time that I spend, who I spend it with, on what I spend it, and I will make myself a priority because I had really let that go out of the window and didn't exist anymore and didn't matter what she wanted, who she was, the creativity, the sport, the whatever. Even we were talking about your amazing skin, even taking care of myself. It just wasn't happening because everything and everyone else was more important. And I think it was really this realization of if I keep going, I'll end up very unhappy. And I didn't want to be unhappy because that is this like idea of life is you're supposed to be happy somehow, one way or another.
Oh, I totally get it. And it's like, but it usually hits around in the 40s because I remember it hitting me
Yeah.
around then to like, you only have so much time. I mean, I had got hit with it when I was 22 with my brain tumors, right? But but then again, it's like you're going through life and you forget. But it's like, I was overdoing it because I was like, oh my gosh, I have so much time. So anyway, any last words for our guest or how, and I know you'll put your website in the links on our Facebook forum. Any last words for our guest?
Yeah, no, thank you for giving me the opportunity and for taking me back in my childhood journey. It was really interesting to just think about that myself. And yeah, and I think if you like podcasts and conversations like this is what I do on my podcast. So if anybody wants to connect, probably the productivity sweet spot is the best place to get more of the little tidbits and tricks and my journey and other people who have gone through different journeys or similar journeys. And yeah, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Tammy.
Well, thank you so much. It was my honor to have you. So thanks again for being here. I want to thank our audience for being here. And of course, Anne will post her website here. And if you have any more questions for me, you can direct message me or go through my website, unlockingfreedom.com. So thanks again for being here and hope you guys have a wonderful week. Bye.
Thank you.